Good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here, and today the long-awaited sister of the Nelson is finally in game. The Tier VII Premium British battleship Rodney has finally gone on sale in the premium shop today. We have been waiting for this ship, well, essentially since the Nelson made her debut in game, and now we have them both finally in game. And man, this ship looks good, especially in the lighting we got going on here in the Hawaii port. She looks amazing. So hats off to the art department. Man, again, look at all these little doodads and knickknacks on the ship. And look how high fidelity they are in comparison to some of the older models. The game just keeps getting better and better looking as time goes on. But yes, Rodney is finally here. She's pretty interesting. What Wargaming's done with her is they've basically taken the Nelson and geared it towards close quarters combat. She has 1.6 Sigma, but supposedly she gets the Soviet battleship dispersion gimmick, where you get better dispersion at closer range, and you get the 30k alpha turning torpedoes. That's pretty cool. The Nelson and the Rodney did have torpedoes tubes in real life, so it's nice seeing that finally be delivered here in game. But before we go any further, absolutely massive shout out to the channel's Patreons. I am not a CC, nor supported by or affiliated with Wargaming in any way, shape, or form. So in order to get these ships to review for you guys, I have to buy them with either the ad revenue or the generous funds donated by the Patreons, whose names should be popping up on screen right now. Supporting the channel by becoming a patron is the best way to do so, besides, of course, just watching the videos and streams. So, massive shout out to those guys. Again, if you want to be so generous, you can check out the link in the description down below. Now, though, the Rodney. Man, this ship, I don't know, I just really like the way that the Nelson class looks. They're essentially a cut-down version of the, was it the N-class, G-class battle cruiser? So what what we got with the St. Vincent, they just cut off the back half of the ship and then stuffed all the engine and propulsion gearing back here and shoved all of the turrets up here in order to save on the weight of the ship. So when you put all the turrets in the front of the superstructure, in real life, you only have to armor right here to right here, which, that's a much shorter distance than if you put this third turret behind the superstructure, because now you got to put a heavy belt armor from all the way up here to all the way back here, and that's heavy. And when you're being built in the era of naval treaties and such, you got to save weight to meet those treaty restrictions and such. But anyway, Rodney, yeah, she's here. And Wargaming, get yourself a cookie for what you've done here. Because believe it or not, dear viewer, yes, the Rodney is available in containers. Containers, we're going back to containers now, apparently, rather than random bundles or sequential bundles. So you can see she's right here in the D-Day premium container along with her sister, the Nelson. You have a 3% chance of getting one of those ships, or, well, one of these 6 ships, right? Along with Montcalm and Orion 44, the other 2 D-Day ships that are being released. But, believe it or not, you can actually just go into the premium shop and just buy it. It's like, what? They actually listened? I can just buy the Rodney finally? Yeah, for $39, the average cost of a Tier 7 premium ship, you can just buy the Rodney outright for cash like days of old. And I gotta say thank you, Wargaming, for, doing that to where we can just buy the ship instead of going through all these goofy loot boxes and random bundles and sequential bundles. So you get a cookie for that from me on this review, Wargaming. So anyway, yeah, if you want the ship, just buy it in the premium shop for 39 bucks like every other Tier 7 premium. So, we're going to go ahead and go through the Rodney, look at her stats, look at her armor and all of that jazz. So let's go ahead and get started with her exterior tab. This is the premium camo you get. It is quite literally the exact same camo that her sister has. Like, everything is exactly the same. I'm not sure if that's what they did in real life, if they made the 2 ships look exactly the same. I guess it would make sense, you don't want the Germans to know which ship is what if they're, trying to spy on them through a U-boat or aerial reconnaissance, even though the superstructures do look different. But it's exactly the same. But again, okay, fine. At least it's getting a premium camo that's not just one color like so many newer premium ships. Economics, though, she does, of course, get the premium ship bonus. You get a 5% boost to credits, 50% boost to your various XPs, and since she is a full-blown premium ship, she does get the baked-in premium economy as well. So again, you should have no problems, especially with this being a Tier 7 ship, at printing credits. Alright, her armor. 26mm bow, 32mm upper belt, 32mm torpedo blister, 26mm stern, 26mm stern deck, 32mm midsection deck. Turrets have a 406mm face, 279mm cheek, 229mm side, and a 129mm rear with a 184mm top, and the barbettes are 356mm. And stripping away all that armor to reveal her citadel, yeah, it's, well, the Nelson. It's very much exposed. You get a 330mm belt there, is that on both sides. Oh, and then the frontal part is 356mm thick. But again, I'm 99% sure that, yep, it is exactly the same as the Nelson. So, no surprises there. Don't show your side. You're going to have a very bad time. Is it behind it? So it is kind of behind the torpedo blisters. So, I mean, sometimes that'll save you, but, like, I mean, I've played a lot of the Nelson, and from my experiences, just don't show your sides, because you're going to have a very, very bad time. Go away, armor. Thank you. Alright, for her survivability, she has 62,900 hit points, and 19% torpedo damage reduction. So, I know I'm just hopping back and forth between the two ships. So, she's a little bit tankier than the Nelson. Look at that. A little bit tankier. Alright. So, you get another 3,000-ish HP there. Alright, for her guns, she, of course, gets her 9 406mm 16-inch main battery guns with a 30-second reload time. The turret's 180 in 45 seconds. They have a maximum dispersion of 247 meters. A maximum range of 18 kilometers. Although I doubt you'll be able to hit anything at that range. The HE shells do a maximum damage of 5,950 and have a 45% chance of causing a fire. They can pin 68mm of armor, and those come out the tubes at 792 meters a second. Now, the AP, it is a lighter AP shell. The Nelson has an alpha rating in the 12,000s. The Rodney has an alpha rating of 10,800, but they still come out the tubes at 788 meters a second, which is exactly the same as the Nelson. But again, they have a higher crimp value and a better air drag coefficient. So, I mean, you get slightly better penetration with the Rodney guns over the Nelson guns. Again, it's very slight. At close range, it'll probably make the difference, but again, at long range, I doubt you'll really be able to hit anything. The HE, is the HE the same? I didn't check on that beforehand. So you get a 1% less fire chance there with the HE, and the Nelson's HE can pin 102mm of armor, while the Rodney's only pins 68. So it's not the actual British HE, but you still get the good fire chance and less alpha. So, yeah. Won't be as good as Nelson is with the HE, because you can't just pin everything with your HE, but you'll probably still be setting fires if you can hit, right? Again, with the decreased accuracy and all that jazz. Alright, so for secondary guns, you get 6 of the single-mounted 120mm guns with a 5-second reload time, a maximum range base of 5.6 kilometers, and then we go on to the dual-mounted 152s in the turrets with a reload time of 12 seconds, maximum range of 5.6 kilometers, the maximum damage of 2,150, 9% fire chance. They can pin 25mm of armor. Those come out the tubes at 884 meters a second. So again, not a secondary ship. And the torpedoes, you get 2 of the 30K Alpha torps in the hull. These are the turning torpedoes or the semi-guided torpedoes, whatever you want to call them. They reload in, they have a 10-kilometer range. Wow, that's pretty nice. But they reload in 40 seconds. That's pretty quick. And they do a maximum damage of 29,367, traveling at a speed of 67 knots, and they're detectable from 1.7 kilometers. I would imagine that, you know, I'm going to be pretty close when I'm using those. Go away. My mouse is acting up. All right, you get 2 charges of the depth charge flight. So you get 25-second reload time on that, 1 aircraft per flight, and 1 bomb. Maximum damage of 3,400. AH has an 80 rating of 66, which isn't great. You get 61 of these single-mounted 20mm Oerlikons. Then you get 5 of the dual-mounted 20mm Oerlikons. And you get 1 of the quad-mounted 40mm Vickers guns. I love that. That setup's so dumb. But here's the one I really love. What is a like oct mounted? I don't know. 5 of the 8 40mm Oerlikon guns. It's such a goofy setup. And then 6 of the single-mounted 120mm guns are dual purpose, but the turrets are not. That's interesting. So you get 252 damage per second. The flak explosions does 1260 damage, 35% reinforcement to your sector, and a firing range of 5.2 kilometers, which is very short, even by Tier 7 standards. She goes 23.8 knots in comparison with a Nelson. That sounds slower than, yeah. Well, I don't have the flag on yet. Yeah. When I put the flag on, that'll go up. So 23.8 knots is her top speed, 760 meter turning circle radius, and a 15.3 second rudder shift time. Consumables is 14.8 kilometers base. Alright, for her box of gimmicks, she does get her historically accurate engine boost. During the hunt for the Bismarck, the Rodney partook in that, and in order to catch up to the Bismarck, after they disabled her rudder, the crew of the Rodney somehow, through what I can only assume is British stubbornness, managed to push the Rodney faster than her designed top speed. So this is literally historically accurate here on the Rodney. So a 50% engine boost is active for 120 seconds and cools down 120 seconds, so 2 minutes. Now, perhaps the biggest downgrade from the Nelson to the Rodney is that you do get an improved heal, but it's not the Nelson super heal that can reprint half the ship. Which is concerning because this is supposed to be a close-range brawling battleship, but it still has the Nelson armor scheme and layout. So, I don't know. But this heal regenerates 314 HP per second, is active for 28 seconds, and it does cool down in 40 seconds. You get 4 charges of it based. But the Nelson's heal regenerates 1425 HP per second. So, while it is still an improved heal, especially with that cooldown, I don't know. But, again, we'll see. Still a Tier 7 battleship with 16-inch guns. You can overmatch quite a lot at that tier with that caliber of gun. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put a commander module build on the Rodney, and we'll meet right back here. Alright, so for the modules, so she is only a Tier 7 ship, she only has 4 mod slots. We went with main armaments mod 1 because, well, that is the main damage output for the Rodney. So this reduces the chance of them becoming incapacitated by 20%, buffs their survivability by 50%, and reduces their repair time by 20%. And the same thing for the torpedo tubes in the bow. Again, 30k alpha torps, want to protect those if we can. And then I took Damage Con Mod 1 because, well, fires suck, and this reduces the chances of us catching on fire by 5%, and reduces the chances of us flooding by 3%. Then I took Aiming Systems Mod 1 because, well, the guns aren't that accurate, and we want them to get as accurate as we possibly can get them to be. So this reduces the dispersion of the main battery shells by 7%. And it also increases the torpedo tube traverse speed by 20%. I don't know if that actually affects like the end-hole torpedoes like what we have here with the Rodney, but alright. It does also increase the secondary guns' range and their dispersion by 5% each. Again, I don't think it's really going to help out too much on the Rodney, but it does it. And then I took Damage Con Mod 2 because, well, fires suck, so does flooding. So this reduces our recovery time from fires and floods by 15%. Of course, I also have the usual flags on. We got the detonation flag, the fire suppression flag, the flooding recovery flag, the ramming flag, AA flag, speed flag, the consumable flag, and of course the healing flag. Now for the commander, I did slap Cunningham on here because, well, if you got him, use him. So this build we have is preventive maintenance starting out with a 30% buff to the chance of our modules becoming incapacitated. Also improves the survivability of the secondary guns and the AA guns by 15%. Then I went with Grease the Gears, which improves the turret traverse speed by 20%, so they're moving around a little bit faster, which is very helpful, again, if you're playing at close range. Then, of course, Adrenaline Rush, so when we do take damage, you get a buff to our reload time. And the way this works is for every 1% of HP that you lose, you get a 0.2% buff to your reload time. Doesn't sound like a lot on paper, but trust me, it adds up in game. Then I took Basics of Survivability, which reduces our module restoration time and our recovery from fires and floods by another 15%. Then I took Emergency Repair Expert to give us another charge of that heal, and it also increases the runtime of that heal by 10%. Same for the damage con as well. So the more time you have that heal going, the more health you're getting back, and the more time you have that damage con going, the less time you can be set on fire, because when you have damage con going, no fires or floods can be set on your ship. Then we took Consumables Expert to get our detection range down just a little bit more. Controlling your engagement is one of the best things you can do in game, and well, being stealthy is the way you do that, because you can stop firing, go dark, and run away if need be. Then I took Fire Prevention Expert because, well, fires suck. And this reduces the chance of us catching on fire by 10% and removes one of the 4 spots on the ship where we can catch on fire. So we can only have 3 fires on our ship and not 4. So what did that do to the Rodney? Well, the guns now, their maximum dispersion is 230 meters. They rotate in 37.5 seconds now, which is pretty fast. Shouldn't have affected the shells in any way, shape, or form. The torpedoes shouldn't have affected them. Maneuverability, though, we now go 25 knots with the speed flag. Our Consumables now down to 13.4 kilometers, which is fairly stealthy for a Tier 7 battleship. Alright, so we're going to take the Rodney into battle, fellas, and see how she does. I'll meet you guys there with a voiceover review of her. Alright, so the Rodney, well, let's start out with the good. So the 9 16-inch guns of the Rodney, of course, mean you can overmatch pretty much anything you're going to see if you are in a Tier 7 game and you are top tier, so that's a nice pickup. And while the HE shells aren't the British BB HE shells, they still do have, again, that very generous 46% fire chance. So you will be starting fires in the Rodney, and that's what I did. I would usually start with HE, and then as we got closer in where the AP shells would actually, well, connect, then I would swap on over to AP around 13, 12-ish kilometers from there. And, of course, the Rodney does get the engine boost, that nice 13% engine boost for 2 minutes, which does really help make the ship feel a hell of a lot more maneuverable. And that's great if you need to rush a target or you need to disengage. That can and will either make that move for you happen if you're rushing a target, or it will save your life if you're using it to disengage. So that's a good up there. The 30K Alpha torpedoes are also quite nice because, well, again, since it is a Tier 7 ship, that is in most cases about half of most Tier 7 and below battleships' HP pools. And when it comes to cruisers, that's, again, by Tier 7 and below standards, that's in most cases 80% to 100% of most cruisers' HP. And, well, that's where the good ends, and now we get to where the bad begins. So Rodney's whole thing is that she is meant to be a close-range brawling ship, a mix of the Soviet battleships and the British battleships. You get the Soviet battleship dispersion gimmick, where the closer you are to the target, theoretically the dispersion is supposed to be better. And you get the turning torpedoes that we get on the British battle cruisers. But all of that is bolted to a British battleship hull without the British battleship hill. Yes, it is an improved hill because you have the 40-second cooldown time, but outside of that, it's pretty much a standard hill. And, well, what that does is make for, in most realistic cases, a pretty miserable experience. Why? Because Tier 7 can and will get up-tiered a lot. And the Rodney has the exact same hull that the Nelson does. And if you have the Nelson, you know just how badly that thing eats just about every single bit of large caliber AP thrown at it. You see, the 26mm stern and bow of the Rodney, which is quite large, That can be overmatched by 15-inch guns and above. You can bounce 14-inch and below, which, again, if you're top tier in a Tier 7 game, yeah, that's a pretty common caliber. But from Tier 8 on up, 15-inch and above is the norm, which means that in most of the cases that you're going to be finding yourself in with the Rodney, you are going to just be getting overmatched and pinned by just about every single ship you can see on the map. And keep in mind, too, that the Rodney's hull doesn't exactly blend in with the water, if you will. It stands up out of the water. She's got a lot of freeboard. There's a lot of side there to hit. And again, if you played the Nelson or shot at a Nelson, another battleship, you again know how squishy these ships are. And keep in mind, too, with cruisers and such around Tier 7, Tier 8, those cruisers are aiming to pin 32 millimeters of armor, taking IFHE and all that jazz that they need to get it over there, mainly by taking IFHE. And again, the extremities of the ship are 26 millimeters, and then the midsection is coated in 32. So when it comes to HE shells and HE bombs, you're gonna get pinned. And, well, when you tell a battleship that has a hull that's this fragile, hey, you now are going to be a brawling battleship from close range in is where you need to be playing at, well, that doesn't really go well. There's several things that need some attention on Rodney, but the worst is by far the heel. And, well, really the survivability, but I think the easiest thing to fix would just be giving it an actual improved heal, like the Warspite heal. Give it that 40-second cooldown time and give it a Warspite heal, because what happens so much the Rodney, at least with me playing the Rodney, is one, I'm in a lot of Tier 8 games, which again, 15-inch guns and above, very common at Tier 8 up. I'm in a lot of Tier 8 games. And Tier 8 games, that's where things start to get a little distant, meaning that pretty consistently in Tier 8 games, the matches are stuck at 15 kilometers plus for a majority of the match. You might get lucky and something might happen where both sides decide to move in a bit earlier, but you're stuck at 15 kilometers plus. And there you are in the Rodney with the Soviet battleship dispersion gimmick with 1.6 Sigma, mind you, where you can't really get too many shells to connect at long range, which is why you're leaning on the HE. And again, the HE, while not the improved British BB HE with the improved pin, it still will start fires, but you're going to be landing like 1 or 2 shells every 30 seconds if you're lucky. So you're stuck doing that. In the meantime, you're praying for a fire, right? While everyone wants to shoot you because, well, 1, you're the new shiny premium ship, and 2, you're just a big, slow, chunky target that they've been used to shooting with the Nelson. The issue is you can't print back your HP near as well as you can in the Nelson, and you're going to be stuck doing this for majority of the match, where you're a punching bag, losing your HP without the ability to recover it, and getting barely anything in return. So that's incredibly frustrating. And the other frustrating part is that when you are in a Tier 7 game, and it's like, okay, I'm Tier 7 now, I'm top tier, I'm the bully here, I have the 16-inch guns, I can overmatch ships now. The thing is, with the AP, at least from what I found during my playthrough of the Rodney, is that the Soviet dispersion gimmick doesn't really work that well. And if you've been playing Russian battleships, you know this. Because there's plenty of times where you were like literally on top of the enemy ship, you fire your guns, and for some reason at 5 kilometers, when your dispersion should be super tight, it's like old German battleship dispersion, and you might land 1 or 2 shells and the rest just go into the water, and you're sitting there like, what the hell? That's the whole point of this gimmick. It rewards me when I push in and get close and take risk by giving me good salvos. But no, that also doesn't happen here. Well, I'm sorry, that does happen here at the Rodney too, where you do take absolutely massive risks because you don't have the armor of a Soviet battleship. You have basically no armor, right? And you're pushing up to within 5 kilometers of the enemy ships, and you get shotgun dispersion still at 5 kilometers. So bad, again, that most of your shells miss, and you'll see that in some of the background footage right now. So that's annoying as hell. It's been a rough... I've been playing this ship for, I think, 3 hours straight so far in order to, really see if it's me or if it's the ship, and I'm pretty sure it's the ship at this point, too. And matchmaking hasn't been that kind. It finally gave me this match watching the background, which when you get into a situation like what you're seeing in the background, be it you get a weird round of matchmaking, or it's a situation like this where there's only a few ships left alive, you manage to preserve your HP for most of the match, and then you can push in with your 16-inch guns in a tier 7 game where you can bully other ships. And yes, in those cases, the ship can and will work. The issue is that this isn't most cases. This isn't most matches. This is an odd match, right? I mean, in my case, because matchmaking was kind to me, right? I guess it had pity on me after 3 hours of suffering through the Rodney. They said, okay, we'll give him like, a 6 or 7 player tier 7 game. But yeah, if you can get to within close ranges, the ship's pretty good, but it's also a ship that only goes 23 knots, and when you pop the engine boost, it goes 28 knots, which is great. So, like, if you are pushing up and you need that extra bit of maneuverability and speed, you can pop it, and that definitely, again, makes the ship feel a whole hell of a lot maneuverable, because it is, and you can pull off some pretty crazy things at close range, but those matches are few, and far in between. And yeah, the 30k Alpha Torps are really funny when you get to use them, but honestly, you don't really get to use them that much. And like, yeah, they have a 10-kilometer range, but it's one torpedo you're firing at 10 kilometers. I mean, destroyer players that have, 3 or 4 racks of torpedoes, they'll fire from 10 kilometers and they'll still miss like 80% of the torps, right? So it's again, while it's got the 10-kilometer range, unless you're playing against someone that doesn't know the A and D key exists, it's not really going to work, and it's meant for close range in most cases, it seems. But yeah, there's some things they can do to fix it. Again, giving it a Warspite heal, that'll definitely help. I think that's fair with what it has right now, because again, you're essentially useless in tier 8 games that are going to be, those matches where you're sitting back at 15 kilometers plus. You're just a punching bag for the enemy team. And again, you're not really dangerous until you're like 11 kilometers in. I think it'd be fair to give this thing a Warspite heal with the quick cooldown. That would work. Or this really should have been a tier 8 battleship. If it had the 32mm armor for the bow, for the stern, for its extremities, it would be a hell of a lot more tanky. And you wouldn't be getting overmatched by everyone and their mom that has a 15-inch gun, right? So it really should have been a tier 8 with slightly more accurate guns. And I think it would have been perfect. But they wanted to keep it at tier 7 for whatever reason. And again, they could still give it a Warspite heal. They could give it a quicker reload on the guns. I think like a 26-second reload would be fine, because these guns are not accurate. I get a 1.6 Sigma and terrible dispersion at range, right? They're just terrible. Again, you really have to get within like 11, 12-ish kilometers for the ship to really be actually dangerous. Outside of that range, not really. It's going to get bullied and melted down before it can do anything, right? So, unfortunately, I wouldn't really recommend picking the ship up right now. If they announce some changes for it tomorrow or something, sure, maybe, but I really don't think it's worth the money. There's better Tier 7 Premium British battleships out there, like the Duke of York, and that one's a coal ship, and it's completely free. Now, again, I do appreciate that Wargaming put this ship and the Montcalm and the Mont Blanc, whatever it is, and the Orion 44 in the premium shop, and you can buy them outright without having to gamble for them. I really appreciate that, but this is one I would pass on, fellas. Overall, I would give the ship a 5 out of 10, because again, in most situations you're going to be in a tier 7 battleship, it's just not a fun, enjoyable time. It's going to be pretty miserable, and yes, when you get into those close range situations, it will be great. If rank comes down to tier 7, sure, it'll probably be alright for that. Again, the smaller format with the closer range engagements, it will do well in that. But for random battles, nah, it's just more frustrating than what it's worth, in my opinion, at least. Especially with the teams I was getting with, 0 spotting, 0 support in most cases. So, yeah. Unfortunately, guys, this one is a pass for me. Again, save your money. Get a Duke of York. Much better battleship in my mind. Even really, like the King George V, the tech line version is so much better than this, and the Monarch is really good right now thanks to that buff. The only reason I would say get it is if you are a history buff and you're a collector and you just want to have a Rodney. You've probably already bought the ship, but again, not a fun ship in my mind. Unfortunately, one of the Oh, I don't want to say worse. One of the not so good premium Tier 7 premium ships of all time here, in my opinion, at least. But yeah, pass on it, guys. Save your money. Buy something else. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you guys think about the Rodney. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm right? Are you having similar experiences with it? Let me know in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday, and wonderful rest of the week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.